Testing, 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 just only a testing. Testing, just only a testing. Hello, Craig, can you see that?
Yes, we hear you now, Chris.
Okay. Okay, great. So that's good.
Item from closed session. On item A. On September 15th, 2023, the mayor and city council sent a letter requesting that the boards investigate certain employment-related complaints against ORS management and our outside legal counsel, Reed Smith. The boards retained Brett Williams as independent investigative legal firm from the city's approved list of such firms to look into this matter. Over the course of several months, Brooke Williams interviewed 17 people over a dozen of hours and investigated 17 alleged violations of city policy. Brooke Williams issued their findings, and the board has unanimously accepted those findings. Brooke Williams made a determination for each allegation, either sustained, meaning this item occurred, unsustained, meaning the item cannot be proven either way, or unfounded, which means there was no evidence. Brooke Williams found that none of the 17 alleged violations of city policy were sustained. One allegation was unsustained. The remaining 16 were unfounded. The report was just completed over the course of the last day or two. The board will need time to read it because it's pretty extensive, and then we will move forward from there.
And there's no reportable action for closed item 1B.
The last thing is that based on the completion of the report, there is no conflict, and we've re-engaged our CEO. Okay, moving on to item number 1, approval of the consent calendar. Motion from Dave.
Second.
Second from Dave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, I think that takes us to investments.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, trustees. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I had to zoom in today. I could not attend in person. We do have 2 items to discuss this morning. But before I get to those items, just wanted to give you pro forma performance as I always do. As of April 2nd, the pension plan was up 7.6% year to date, and the healthcare trust was up 7.9%. So again, 7.6 for the pension system and 7.9 for healthcare. With that, I'm going to go on to item 2B. We did have an extensive discussion on strategic asset allocation at the IC last month. And what came out of the IC was that the investment committee wanted to see a couple of different options. We kept in mind that we revised our IPS language last year to indicate that strategic asset allocation should be long-term and need not be discussed annually. However, we did discuss that, our risk levels, and we wanted to make sure that we are at the appropriate risk level for our plan. And the IC actually directed staff and consultants to come up with 2 different options at 11.25% and 11.5% risk. However, we found out that even a slight tweak increased risk to 11.5%. So we have actually given you 2 options today, one at 11.5% and the other at 11.75%. And we are going to be discussing those 2 options for the consideration of the board. And for that discussion, I'm going to invite Laura Wyrick.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I was planning to be there in person until 9:30 p.m. last night when I took a COVID test and it popped up very positive. So I'm glad to not be exposing anyone today. I'm very glad for the capability to call in instead. So let me share my screen here. Can everyone see that all right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I'm joined today by Makita Investment Group's Director of Research, Frank Benham. Frank has been with Makita for decades and is the architect of our capital market expectation setting process that we do annually. As your CIO mentioned, we had a very detailed conversation at the investment committee around those assumptions. So we're just going to jump right in today to the new options, but Frank is available, as am I, in case you have any questions on the expectations that led to these outcomes that we're going to talk about. So here you can see the current policy that you have now on the left, as well as an option 1 and option 2. Typically, when we show you the current policy, we collapse some of these individual asset classes together. For example, the value-added and opportunistic real estate, you can see broken out here. The sort of general theme here, as your CIO mentioned, is that option 1 and option 2 are higher risk. There was a discussion at the IC about looking at some alternatives to the current policy, even if they weren't going to be implemented immediately, just to see what that would look like. And you can see here that option 1 has another 2.5% in growth. That's accomplished through an additional 1% to buyouts, which is private equity, an additional 0.5% to venture capital, and another 1% to private debt. Then we also have option 2, which has 5% more in growth assets than your current policy, accomplished in a similar way, but with a bit higher magnitude. You can see an additional 1% relative to the current policy in buyouts or private equity, an additional 1% to venture capital, an additional 1% to private debt, and an additional 1% to private real assets, which we modeled as the underlying asset class of private natural resources. So these are all private assets in option 1 and option 2, which, as you know, do take some time to accomplish through your pacing plans to get there. So even if you were to adopt one of these, it would take some time and probably would not be accomplished by the next time fully that we're talking about this next year. You can see the influence of those additional private assets in option 1 and option 2 on your long-term expected annual return, as well as the standard deviation. And as you know, the standard deviation is calculated by Verus. So you can see that the current policy has an expected standard deviation of 11%. Option 1 would be at 11.4 and option 2 at 11.7. In terms of the expected return, that would also be about 20 basis points higher in option 1 and about 40 basis points higher in option 2. And you can see that the probability of achieving your target rate of return would increase with options 1 or 2. That's sort of the summary of the options here, but then we have some additional analysis. We look at worst case scenario returns, and as you'd expect, riskier asset allocations would have worst case scenario expected returns. They have a slightly higher probability of experiencing negative returns. And then the probability of achieving your expected rate of return would be higher with higher risk, higher return options 1 and 2. We look at value at risk as well, and conditional value at risk, which is sort of a more comprehensive measure of value at risk. As you know, you can probably intuit, there's a higher value at risk when you have a higher standard deviation or higher risk asset allocation, as you would under options 1 and 2. And then we look at historical scenario analysis as well. So this historical scenario analysis is not based on Makita Investment Group's capital market expectations. This is based on index returns in historical market environments. We like to look at a lot of different measures around asset allocation. And you can see here that in negative historical scenarios, again, a higher risk allocation with option 1 or option 2 would have slightly more negative returns. And then when we look at the flip side of that, say the recoveries from those negative market scenarios, with the most recent one being the first tier, the COVID recovery, you can see that options 1 and options 2 would have higher returns in those historical scenarios. We also look at stress testing, which isn't what's actually happened in the past, but some future expectations based on what's happened in the past. And you can see rising interest rates, credit spreads widening, the US dollar increasing in value, and US equities declining quite a bit. You can see US equities decline 40% there. At the bottom would be the most negative scenario, but the higher risk options would have more negative outcomes in the stress testing that we've done. And then the flip side is true on positive movements. If rates were to drop, if US equities were to rise, for example, in some other scenarios, we'd expect options 1 and 2 to do better than the current policy. We also look at economic regime management. This is a type of testing that we put together to sort of indicate that the absolute level of inflation or growth or interest rates isn't really what's most important. What's most important is surprises relative to what the market expects. And no surprises here again on this type of economic regime management analysis. There'd be more systemic risk, which is on the right here, which is sort of global market, global financial crisis like risk. The riskier options 1 and 2 would be expected to have more negative outcomes if systemic risk were to surprise and we were to have more systemic risk. So just as a summary, we think that shifting some current cash assets to private assets seems like something reasonable for you all to consider. As your CIO mentioned, we also do support, adopting long-term asset allocations and sticking with them. And we don't think there's anything lacking in your current asset allocation, but we wanted to present these alternative scenarios at the direction of the investment committee.
Thank you, Laura. Just to add to Laura's comments, trustees, we can take, as per our investment policy statement, we can take risk up to 12%. And currently we are at about 11%. And as Laura mentioned, we have a perfectly good asset allocation right now. But should the board wish to increase risk, either by 50 basis points or 75 basis points, you have the options in front of you. With that, we're happy to take questions.
So Prabhu, so this is for the next fiscal year, right? So any changes would be for the next fiscal year, correct?
That's right. Though we can either do it later, or we also have the ability to implement it right away.
Okay.
But again, as Laura mentioned, because these options involve private markets, because of our pacing plan and the way that operates, anything will be very gradually done.
Yeah. I mean, not to preempt a discussion here, but I personally say we discuss this at the IC, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, and then kind of vote on it at the next meeting. That would be my suggestion. And then 2 of our trustees who probably want to be involved in this discussion also not here too.
I think what you're saying is your recommendation would be to defer, recommend it back to the IC for a recommendation to the full board.
Yes.
I will second that. That's moving consensus.
So that's the motion. We have a second from Dick, motion from Eswar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Are you done there? I heard all right, so I'm just checking. Do you have anything to add?
No, thank you, trustees. We will take this up at the IC in 2 weeks then.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to 2C. These are subscriptions and other data services that we subscribe to. We bring this in front of the board annually. And for this item, I'm going to invite Ron, who will be supported by Jay, Dinesh, and Christina. Over to you, Ron.
Good morning. We currently have 10 subscription agreements that need funds added to in order to continue services. The fees for these agreements are shared between the police and fire and the federated plans, except for Clarity FX and Zeno. You'll see on the second to the right column is the PNF's allocation. We are also working to align the end date of these contracts to align with the plan's fiscal year end of June 30th. The second chart shows other subscriptions the plan has for transparency purposes. However, those are not part of this approval memo. If there's any questions, my colleagues and I will be happy to answer.
Yeah, so this,
I do have one quick
oh,
question.
go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, what's pricing been like for some of these subscriptions? Have they also raised prices?
I'm sorry, I could not hear the last part.
This is Howard. What's the pricing been like for some of these services? Have they been raising prices like everybody else?
Yeah, there have been some of the contracts have not, but there are a few that have raised prices anywhere between 1% to 3%.
And page 2 of the memo has the specific increases.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, okay. So thank you.
Okay, this item's a discussion and action, so I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Motion second. Santos, we have a second from Eswar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
That takes us to number 3, old business and continued items. Discussion and action on proposed city ordinance to amend San Jose Municipal Code Part 4.12 and Section 3.36.385 and amendments to Section 7 of the city's sunshine resolution. I'll turn that over to, I think, ATAC.
Yes, so thank you, everyone. As you may recall, at the last meeting, the city council and by way of the city attorney have proposed a number of muni code changes to this board for review and comment. We have 60 days from the date that the proposed ordinances are provided to the board. Comment and recommendations back to the city council and the city attorney. We've had the opportunity to review and analyze these muni code changes from a fiduciary standpoint, and I remind the board that the city attorney had confirmed that they had not run these muni codes by tax council to determine whether or not they were tax compliant to maintain the qualified status of the plan. And so we hired independent tax counsel separate from the city's tax council to review these for tax compliance to maintain the qualified status of our plan. From our review of the muni code changes put forth by the city, there are significant issues with regard to the changes to the board's contracting authority, particularly around services necessary for the plan administration. The California Constitution and the San Jose Municipal Code grants the board plenary authority over the administration of the plan and does so because the board alone has fiduciary duties owed to the members and beneficiaries, and that's unique to this board. Now, the proposed amendments would insert the finance director to interfere with the board's plenary authority in a couple of ways. One is that it grants the city finance director the ability to determine which contracts fall within the city's jurisdiction and which contracts fall within the board's jurisdiction, even though the board has already deemed these contracts to be necessary for the plan administration. So that is a change to subdivision A6 of the muni code related to the board's contracting authority. A second thing the muni code does is to provide the finance director with all jurisdiction over procurement of goods for the board, but does not give, or for the plan's operation, but does not give the board authority to object or appeal any of the finance director's decision, both for the procurement of goods and in addition to that, no ability to object or appeal the finance director's determination that a service contract necessary for plan administration should be entered in the city's name instead of the board's name. And so those are, from a fiduciary standpoint, some issues that we would want to raise with the city attorney's office to make sure that we maintain our fiduciary duties. Another issue that I want to highlight as well that violates the board's constitutional fiduciary duties is that the proposed amendments give no consideration for the board's responsibility to act in the best interest of its members. Now, as you recall from our fiduciary training, the duty of loyalty to our members and beneficiaries takes precedent over all other duties because we as a pension plan serve for the benefit of our members. That's the sole reason why we exist. We are here to provide benefits paid out, the promised benefits paid out to our members and beneficiaries. And so, these are just a couple of the examples that I wanted to highlight. So for example, although the proposed amendments would require the city to procure contracts on behalf of the board, there's no consideration, for example, on expertise, quality, the extent of the services that are provided. The Municode changes require the finance director to procure only to give contracts out on to award contracts based on the lowest bid. That's how the Municode has been written, or as proposed changes. Now, I'll turn it over to tax counsel, but I did want to note that I would like to have the board at the end of our discussion here to direct counsel to meet and confer with the city about our proposed changes, and maybe we can work it through with the city. But I did want to give the board at a very high level what our fiduciary analysis is, and then I'm going to turn it over to our independent tax counsel, who's joining us via Zoom.
Yeah, that's Rebecca, right?
Yeah. I texted her, so hopefully
She's still in the breakout room?
she needs to be unmuted. She just texted me. I asked her to unmute. Okay. Okay. It said it won't let her unmute.
Oh, great. I'm unmuted now. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I do ID.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm Rebecca Alprin. As Maytek said, I did review the proposed amendments from the perspective of the impact on the tax qualified status of the plan. And I will take just a few seconds here to give my brief comments. So to keep the tax qualified status of the plan in accordance with the terms of the Internal Revenue Code, the board as plan trustee must operate the plan in accordance with its terms for the exclusive benefit of participants and their beneficiaries. This means that the terms of the plan cannot contradict a requirement of the code, and the board must operate the plan in a way that doesn't violate those code provisions. The code and requirements under the municipal code have been interpreted to require the board to act with the same duty of prudence and loyalty that Maytek discussed in order to perform its responsibilities for the exclusive benefit of participants and beneficiaries. So for reasons similar to those discussed from a fiduciary perspective, the amendments jeopardize the tax qualified status of the plan by placing the board in situations or requiring the board to follow procedures counter to the best interest of participants and beneficiaries. It's a high-level overview. I'm happy to entertain questions.
Not seeing anybody.
Well, I just have a comment.
Oh, hold on.
You know,
Give me
like-
one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Like all of us, when Maytag a while back went over all the different changes, we tried to follow city policies and so on, and try to get along and harmonize and all of us wholeheartedly embrace that. But the years I've been here with the overpayment, underpayment, FLSA, financial issues, tax issues, really controversial that cause a lot of heartache and so on. So we're trying to get working together to have that trust established to make sure finances are paid out to the retirees and not have this kind of system again. So I sure hope that we can work on something that'll bring that confidence back to all of us and let the board handle the expertise, because those tax issues and payments were just tremendous to some of our retirees. They were worried about losing their homes and people moving, couldn't do this. It was a disaster. So that doesn't mean a mistake violates all the trust and so on, but I hope we can establish that, let this board keep on operating, not the word independent, but have the responsibilities of fiduciaries to make sure that our retirees get the best expertise representation.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I got one quick question. Did I hear correctly? You said that if things stay as is or as proposed, the plan could lose its tax status.
Tax exempt.
Yeah, what I said was that if the proposed amendments are adopted as written without some modifications, it does jeopardize the tax qualified status of the plan. Now, whether or not the plan would actually lose its tax qualified status, you know, I am not able to predict because I don't know what the IRS would do if they came in and you know, did an audit or something to that effect. But the amendments as written certainly do place the board in a potentially compromising position where the members of the board are not able to act for the best interest of participants and beneficiaries of the plan.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Dave?
You mind if I ask a follow, or go ahead?
No, you can ask a question.
Yeah, this is Councilmember Pam Foley, and I had a question for you. You said that you're not saying it will lose tax status. I'm curious, I'm not clear as to why, if the amendments were adopted, tax status is in jeopardy. Can you go into that a little bit more in depth?
Sure. So to maintain tax qualified status, so let me back up for a second. A plan such as this is granted tax qualified status so that the accrued benefits can grow tax-free and contributions can be made to the plan on a tax-free basis, right? And it also affords certain other tax benefits to all parties involved with respect to the plan. If a plan loses its tax qualified status, then that becomes a taxable event to the participants. Now, in order to get all these benefits of tax qualified status, a plan, the document itself, the words of the document have to comply with provisions of the tax code, and since this is a governmental plan, also the provisions of the municipal code and the California Constitution. If those provisions are not followed, that is one, I guess, way in which a plan puts itself in jeopardy. The other way in which a plan puts itself in jeopardy from the tax perspective is that the individuals who are acting and making decisions on behalf of the plan have to do that in a way that's for the exclusive benefit for participants. So as Maytech discussed, acting from a fiduciary perspective with a duty of loyalty and prudently, that is how that interpretation has crossed over into the tax side. And when the board is asked to act with the exclusive interest of participants, they must make all their decisions prudently and with a duty of loyalty to the participants and beneficiaries. So here, where to some degree, those actions or the ability to act in that way is taken away from the board, it jeopardizes the tax qualified status of the plan.
Okay, I understand all of that. I've been a fiduciary of my own personal corporate plan, so I understand everything that you're saying. what I'm not clear on is the proposal by the city, while I haven't read it in detail, some of the provisions that Maytac just went into are things like procurement. Procurement are things where if the city took over the procurement process, could potentially save the plan money, thereby saving the beneficiaries money, thereby benefiting the beneficiary. So I'm just questioning the loss of tax status based on that. So can you give me an example of one provision that is specifically in the document from the city that you're concerned with that would jeopardize the tax status? Because so far you haven't, to me, haven't given me anything that is a red flag that says, oh, we're violating the fiduciary responsibility of the trustees. And I am, as a background, I'm not a trustee on this board. I am the city's council liaison. So I'm listening to what is being said, but it would be helpful for me to understand so that I can take it back to my colleagues or at least the city attorney and discuss the concern. So I'm not saying I'm a pro in this, but I have managed my own plan, my own corporate plan, and so have some background and also have been a fiduciary in many responsibilities. So I understand that, and I believe that the city, it would be a fiduciary too, or have that responsibility. So can you give me one specific provision that you're concerned with?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you have that background because you can also then appreciate, the prohibited transaction rules. And so if the board is, if for example, another individual, say for example, the director of finance, right, is given the ability to make a decision, with respect to, say, procurement of some service related to the plan, and the director of finance in some way enters into an agreement that binds the board, right? Because the board is the trustee of the plan, that would constitute a prohibited transaction inadvertently. I'm not saying that this would be done deceptively, right? But inadvertently, a potential prohibited transaction could occur, and that violates, could potentially cause the plan to lose its tax qualified status. Or another decision is that if the board, pursuant to the terms of the amendment, is required to accept the lowest cost bidder, but the lowest cost bidder is not the bidder that is in the best interest of the participants and beneficiaries, then again, the board has not carried out its responsibilities in accordance with the code and also from a fiduciary perspective.
Okay, I won't take up any more time because I'm here as a monitor and a monitor. I'm here as an observer. But I will say regarding a prohibited transaction, being it inadvertent or purposefully, is that that could happen at the pension, at the retirement services too. They could get involved in a prohibited transaction inadvertently, not intending to do so. That can happen on both sides. I'll just leave it at that. Franco, thank you for letting me ask my questions.
So if I can just quickly respond to Councilwoman Foley, if you could please look at Unicode section 412.310 subdivision B. It requires the finance director to enter into all contracts, and the award requirements is that it's provided to the lowest responsible bidder, and for the contract. Now, there's no provision in there that allows for the best interest of the plan members and beneficiaries in addition to costs. But I will note that in the city's same provision, subdivision B2, it does allow for the procurement authority to determine if it's in the best interest of the city. And so, you know, the city and the members are not synonymous. And so what we would be requesting is to have a similar caveat language provided for the best interest of the members and beneficiaries. And we can work.
Okay, yeah, I suggest that you work with the city attorney on that. I'm not an attorney and I'm not going to check out that municipal code. That's not the level that I operate at. So I appreciate that, Maytag. I hope you'll work with our attorney on that. I think it's Kevin.
Along those lines, I'll make the motion to direct our council and our tax council to meet and confer with the city over these two proposed municipal codes.
We have a motion from Dave Wilson. We have a second from Santos, and I believe there's someone with a public comment.
Cheryl. Cheryl, you're muted.
Okay, hi everyone. Just wanted to make sure that I know that I don't think the city attorney is present today, but I wanted to say that, you know, we can definitely discuss the provisions with the board's council, as that is the motion on the table right now. I just want to say that there may be some fundamental misunderstandings of what the municipal code does. As you know, the procurement policy is currently being followed in some instances by retirement services to procure items, and that has not impeded on any of the board's fiduciary obligations so far. I also want to point out that the Chief Executive Officer of Retirement Services is granted procurement authority in 4.2.035, but I do think it is in our best interest to discuss these changes with council to make sure that the full understanding of the changes is understood by both parties. So we're happy to take that under advisement.
If I may just quickly respond. So we don't take issue with the procurement process. The issue here that we're raising is the contracting authority piece. And so I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on that. It's not the fact that the procurement process itself you take issue with, but rather the board's authority and to enter certain contracts and on what grounds. And so the provision that I pointed out that Ms. Councilwoman Foley had asked our tax council regards the awarding of contracts, it's not the procurement process itself. And so what I would respectively request is that, you know, I have the direction with the of the board to work with the city attorney and to share our thoughts and recommendations on that. Within the 60-day period, though, the city is capable of acting on their proposed amendments, subject to our comments. But what I would request is that both parties, both the city and plan council, work together so we can come up with an amicable position before the city council takes action.
Yeah, and I know the motion, I think Dave made, I would just add to it that we also consult with tax council. So it would be board council, tax council, and the city.
Yeah, I think I included tax council.
Just want to make sure. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, going on to 3B. Discussion and action to authorize the CEO to negotiate and execute the third amendment to the agreement between the Board of Administration for the Police and Fire Department Retirement Plan and Chiron to add 100,000 for a not to exceed contract amount of 2.4 million.
Maggie, and you.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, thank you.
So this item, as you stated, is just to add $100,000 to the contract. At the February meeting, the board decided to extend the contract for 1 year instead of issuing an RFP. The RFP will be issued next year instead. So we are currently close to having enough in the contract to cover expenses through the end of the term. But in case our projections are too low, we want to make sure that we have enough in the contract to cover those. So we are requesting $100,000 to be added to the contract at this time.
Is there any questions?
Just a comment, just a comment. Answer, what's your feelings on this? Because that's investment issues and I've worked with Crayon with that, but you have had more experience at this time.
I can support it.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion from Dick,
Second.
second from Eswar. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 3C, discussion and action on the proposed administrative budget for fiscal year 24-25.
Good morning. Barbara Heenan, Office of Retirement Services Deputy Director. I will speak to this item. This item is before the board is seeking approval for the updated org chart as part of the budget for the upcoming fiscal year 2024-25. The board did hear and approve the budget request for fiscal year 24-25 at their March meetings. However, as noted at that time, we had not got the feedback from the Mayor's office on our proposed position requests. As part of the board agenda today, there's 3 attachments. The first 2 attachments are the same as what was presented and approved at the March meetings. The budget request amount has not changed. What has changed is the 3rd attachment, and that's the org chart. This has been updated. So we recently, just yesterday actually, heard from the Mayor's office, and whereas they are supporting the request for a customer service senior office specialist and a Medicare health benefit analyst, they have indicated that they're not supporting the addition of a 3rd position, the compliance officer senior analyst in our accounting group. This position had been included in the personnel budget request and the org chart presented at the March meetings. And now it has been removed to reflect the decision of the Mayor's office. And obviously then the number of full-time employee positions is going to be 45 instead of 46. And so we'd like you to approve this updated org chart. And then just to let you know, whereas the Mayor's office hasn't approved or supported the addition of this compliance officer, ORS does plan to request an overstrength. You'll sometimes hear it as an OS position. And so that money is still sitting in that personnel budget to cover that request.
Okay, so I believe what you're looking for is for us to accept this budget as amended.
Correct.
Okay,
So moved.
I had a motion from Dick, a second,
Wilson.
a second from Wilson. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just had a clarifying comment, or a question. So could you repeat one more time, what was the position that was not funded or what was being removed here?
They did not support the compliance officer, what we were describing as compliance officer, and what the job classification, city classification would be as a senior analyst in our accounting group.
And what was that compliance officer, what were the duties that you were envisioning for that position?
So that position was going to, let me just get time to my list of.
Yes, that's the position that we anticipated under the accounting group. And really I was a bit surprised by the lack of support, because the intention was for that position to lead the way on the recommendations of the city auditor on the procurement process and contracting and compliance and everything else. So I was sharing with staff, I was a bit surprised that I'm thankful that they supported the positions that we requested on the benefit side, but that particular one, and in fact, this issue, the city auditor will be presenting his findings to the city council at the meeting later this month. And as part of our response, we indicated that we had requested that position as part of the budget. So we're gonna have to find a way to address that issue. Obviously, it's paramount to us and to the boards that we actually have proper controls and procurement process. And again, that position to us was critical to help us achieve that goal. So we'll have to see what the next steps are going to be.
ahead, Andrew.
I guess this is directed to Barbara and Roberto. I'm quite frustrated and disappointed to hear about this. All we've been hearing for the last almost year now since the audit was compliance issues. And you guys are trying to create a position to address it, and the city says no. I'm dumbfounded on why that would be. The budget that the pay that the funding for the city, for our department budget, for the staff, comes from the pension system. The money that goes into the pension system is our members and Park City, okay? It's not like any other department, fire department, police departments, Parks and Recs, where the city provides funding for that. We're trying to do something here that is in compliance and try to make something better. The city, like I said, has been highlighting, the audit report for over a year now. And when we're trying to do something positive, it gets denied. I don't understand the reasoning behind this. And I know Barbara and Roberto, you guys have been working hard on trying to get that improved, but it makes no sense. So sorry about expressing my frustration, but I don't think it's acceptable. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, without going into it, I just want to echo what Andrew was saying. Deeply disappointed. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I won't go into it because I think he said it all, but I just want to let it, he's not alone in his thoughts and the decision-making process on this.
Agreed.
Can I ask Councilman a question? So going back to this discussion on the tax issue and the importance for the board to act independently with fiduciary responsibilities, would this be another case where maybe it's in violation, where the board thinks this is the right thing to do, but the city is not allowed?
Yes, so, it's really up to the board to determine if it's in the best interest of the plan, obviously, but there have been litigation on this particular issue throughout the state of California. So right now, for example, I can give you a couple examples. So Contra Costa County had a very similar situation. They were embroiled with litigation with their county council for similar reasons, personnel appointment reasons. And in that case, they went through litigation, and Contra Costa County then petitioned for the California State Legislature to make them a separate district and give them independence, legal independence from their county employer. And so that's one instance where that has happened. And currently now in Los Angeles County, La Sierra is in a litigation that's currently pending on appeal. There's an oral argument set in May to discuss the issue where in Los Angeles County, La Sierra had asked for certain positions and raises for their investment staff and IT staff, and the county said no. And so they sued them for essentially alleging that they're being forced to violate their fiduciary duties based on the county's decisions. And so that's being currently litigated. It's not an uncommon issue. And so I just want to highlight that for the board.
And I just wanted to add, so obviously we have been working through these budgets for 11 years, but especially the last 6 years or so, through an audit that was requested by the former Mayor Licoro, by the city auditor. It was agreed to make sure that the same documents that you receive as a trustee of the board are actually the same trustee document that the city council received when they had the deliberations on the budget process. So we as an office, and I have to say the city as well, the budget department and the mayor's office, we have worked diligently over the years on these issues. There have been some differences that we have been able to work through. But we remain steadfast on the point that we want to make sure that we work with the city on these issues. We also recognize transparency is a key issue for the city, which is the reason why we, as part of the budget, we don't request funds to approve the investment fees as it was the initial request by the city, but we do produce an annual investment report on investment fees and expenses, as you well know, which actually our CIO goes to the city council to present on the annual basis in the late summer, early fall. So we recognize the needs to work together. And over the years, we have been able to go back and forth and work through these differences. Again, I'm very thankful that they were supportive of a request on another position that we requested this year. But I was very surprised about this one. And I have mentioned in the past to you, board, that there might come a time where a decision has to be made as to how we're going to handle that issue. I'm still hopeful that we just last night, we sent a request to possibly ask for this position as a overstrength. What that really means is a full-time position, but it's not permanent. It's just for 1 year, just to see how it works. We're hoping that they are willing to support something like that. But if they're not, then the city and staff will have to really sit down and think about what the next step should be. It's interesting because the other side of that coin is if we are not able to support that from a position from personnel, we may be looking at contracts and some variation of do some contract work for some consultants, which dollar-wise could end up being higher than hiring someone. Which, you know, it comes from the plan, it will be actually more expense. But aside from that, is a decision about, is this one of those situations where you board have to think, we have to draw the line somewhere, you know, this is impeding our ability to properly fulfill our fiduciary duties, and we may have to go to litigation. Again, I think litigation should always be as a complete last resort. And again, we remain hopeful that we can work through with the city and the mayor's office and the CMO on this request. But I just wanted to give you some general background as to how we got here and what have been the challenges over the years that we have been able to work through. And I think both sides, you know, the city and us have been really willing to work through this. And again, I was surprised about this one because of the whole audit situation and everything else. So, but I can't speak as to, you know, I know the city has some budget challenges. That's why, as part of your board meeting this morning, I provided the mayor's city message on your consent items. And I recognize that the city wants to make sure that they are consistent throughout the city because, you know, we are separate, but we, you know, part of the city process and the city family. So again, we remain hopeful that we can work through it, but, you know, I wanted to answer that question with a little more flavor for it.
This is concerning to me. So Barbara, what was the name of the position that was rejected by the mayor's office?
Compliance officer at a senior analyst level.
Was it mentioned that it was related to the budget and they're concerned about the budget?
It was.
Okay.
Their rationale? No, we haven't gotten any rationale as to the non-support that position.
Okay. I am in the Budget Brown Act with the mayor, so I'll have a conversation with him about that. This compliance is a big issue. I don't know what they're thinking, but we are facing a huge deficit in the coming year. So that may be where the pushback came from. I don't know, but I can check into it, and you know, you'll probably hear more before I do. But I'll certainly see how I can advocate for you in that position.
Thank you. Yeah, and I speak for myself. I would be very interested in an explanation at the least, right? So I appreciate your help with that. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? We got a motion on the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I think we're going on to new business, 4A, oral update from the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually thought I had my comments here let me just check where they are. All right, so I don't have many oral comments this morning, but just a couple. I wanted to let you know, this is specifically to police and fire. Police and fire retirees, I mentioned this at the last meeting, they received their annual Medicare Part B reimbursement letter. And the information was due to us by April 1st. This is to get some reimbursements. Staff received over 896 forms already. Reimbursement started being issued last February. We have already processed over 550 so far, and we expect all reimbursements due back to the members be completed and paid no later than next month in May. Just wanted to let you know that. I also wanted to let you know that ORS former senior auditor Iman Busina actually left employment with our office. His last day was Tuesday, March 19th. And lastly, I attended a city council meeting last month on March 12th to present the annual actual evaluation results for June 30th, 2023. And we actually are going back to the city council August 18 for two issues. One, we're going to be there with the city auditor on his audit of our office on procurement. And we also have the policies and procedures issue that we're going to be presenting to the city council on that day as well. That concludes my comment, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Roberto, what day was that, April 18th?
April 18th, that's Tuesday. Yeah.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
sorry, I apologize.
16th.
April 16th, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, 18 is the federal board meeting. Thank you. 16 is Tuesday, that is city council. Thank you, council member and Barbara. Yes, I got confused there.
Roberto, is that document public? Has the city auditor released that document?
Today, I think. So we're gonna make it available. Yeah, it is. I just received when we were in closed session, I received an email with the link. So it is public now. We'll make it available.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd be interested in that. Thank you.
Okay, we've been going at it for a little while. Why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Recording stopped.
and I respect the position you're in, and I value our employees equally, the retirees and those employees who are currently with us, who will be benefiting from our retirement plan at some point. So I just want to start off by saying that. Just sort of to level set where I am. I've been on this board, I've been on the liaison, this is my 6th year, I think. And it's been a huge learning curve for me, but I really appreciate being here. And I hope over that time you gained a level of understanding of who I am and where I come from. But I do want to tell you a couple of things that are happening at the city that are all budget related. We are in budget session right now. Mayor released his March budget message. There is a potential of 52 million shortfall in the coming year. That is based on, some of those could be fuzzy numbers. It could be less than that. We received a couple of things that are playing into that in, unanticipated ways is that we did not receive our stormwater permit from the water board. And because we did, and that's because we have unhoused on our creeks and waterways who are polluting the waterways. And our plan did not have, in the water board's mind, a good plan on how we were going to address that. The estimate, what we have to do is come up with a plan, which will come back into council in about 5 months now, that will indicate to us a proposal on how we can remove the unhoused from along our creeks. The difficulty is we don't have any place to put them. So if we remove them, we also don't want them to be impacting the neighborhoods, because that doesn't solve the unhoused. It doesn't create housing for the unhoused if they're moving into the neighborhoods, and it creates another situation where the neighbors, the housed residents, are very concerned. So there's a lot we have to do. So we're projecting about 25 million to remediate the creeks and the rivers so that we do get our certificate, our stormwater permit. If we do not get the stormwater permit, we will be penalized $60,000 per day per incident. So you can have 100 of these in one incident of trash in trash in our creeks, human feces in the creeks. There's a lot of things that we could be penalized for, all $60,000 a day. And before you know it, we've exceeded the 25 million it's going to cost us. So that's one thing. The other is that, we are, one of the priorities in the city is housing the unhoused and creating emergency housing. And in order to create some of the emergency housing, we have to create wraparound services. And the cost for both building the emergency interim housing and the services is a little under 23 million. So you add that to the 25 million plus the already projected shortfall, we're about 52 million. Some of those numbers, of course, we're working on that. There's very big concerns about our being able to offer the services that our community demands and prioritizes. The number one priority of our community is public safety. That's absolutely a priority everywhere I go. That's what they want to make sure of, is that we protect our community. That includes police, fire, and keeping our roads safe through construction and infrastructure on our roads. The other issue that is really, really on our residents' mind is the unhoused and the impact on services. And in somewhat they go together. You know, you're in the fire department and you have a station that is near the creeks, you know, you get a lot of calls to the creeks or other encampments. Same thing with PD. PD gets called in a lot. So we want to address the unhoused. We want to treat those who are unhoused fairly and humanely, but we must make sure that we find housing for them. How we do that is a big question, but I think we really have no choice but to do something. So I just, the other issue with the city is, that the residents are very concerned about is blight and affordable housing. We want to continue to build affordable housing, and all of those things really go together and go towards the quality of life. So the process with the budget is that the mayor has submitted his March message, and as I said earlier, I'm on his Brown Act, so I was able to craft part of I had influence over the message. I'm very involved in Vision Zero, so I was able to make sure that Vision Zero was included as an issue in the budget message. But then the city manager will come back with her proposal. There's a lot of direction in the March message from the mayor that says, look at this, investigate that, look at that, come back to us. So on May 1st, my birthday, she will be releasing theoretically, supposed to be May 1st, her proposal, which is the actual budget. That budget will list all the expenses, cost savings, where that's gonna happen, how it's gonna impact staffing, what programs might be in jeopardy. I don't see police and fire being in jeopardy at all, but we'll see, because those are huge priorities for our community. So I'll leave you with that. That's the big issue that's on everybody's mind right now, and we're trying to figure out how we're gonna balance a budget and still provide the service that our residents and staff and community need, and hold on to our staff. It's real important. I'll take any questions you get on for that.
Yeah, just a comment, that liaison Councilwoman Ford was saying about, it's not Valley Water, it's California State Quality Control Board. So,
I didn't say Valley Water.
no, you didn't, I wanted to make sure.
No, I was looking at you saying, don't say Valley Water.
And number two, I'm not going all the politics, but we're talking about partnership, we're definitely gonna help. Off the record here, that's it's all our residents,
Yeah.
it's just not San Jose's problem, it's all of us.
Right.
And the last thing, as busy as Pam is, I had a different issue and she was able to call me, and I was in the hills last night working, hardly could hear her. I'm probably screaming and yelling, trying to hear her, but I appreciate the time.
And thanks for the lemons.
That was recycled water.
Thank you.
Pam,
Yes.
I do want to give you an opportunity to comment on something. As you heard me report out of closed session this morning, it was the mayor and city council that sent a letter requesting us to conduct an investigation of possible policy violations. We used a recommended firm from the city, and there were no policy violations. Do you care to comment on that? That was your direction.
Yeah, I understand. Well, we read the audit and we asked for the follow-up with an independent auditor. I think that's great. I look forward to what our auditor will be saying in, I think, the end of April or mid-April. But yeah, I'm not an auditor. I saw the one side of the story. I didn't see another auditor take a look at it until I see Joe Royce, our auditor, take a look at it. So I was surprised, but I'll see what Joe has to say, and then we'll comment together about what.
Well, I hope you were relieved.
I was pleasantly surprised and happy to see it. Because that's a neutral third-party auditor that was brought in from the city's list. So, I was relieved.
Okay. All right, going on to 4C, discussion and action on lump sum employee contributions towards police and fire retirement plan for fiscal year 24-25.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So what you have before you is actually the official request from the city manager, letting you board know that they will be actually providing lump sum payments of employer pension and OPEB contributions for the coming fiscal year, just specifically to police and fire, not federated, but police and fire. And so it indicates action. There's nothing really here for you to do. Because at the prior meeting last month, you actually approved on work that was provided to you by the investment staff to offer the city the highest discount possible for prepaying the contribution. So you already approved that. So what we will do is I already sent that information to the budget director last month, but we will respond to the letter with that information that they will receive the highest discount, which I suspect that's part of the reason why they are making that decision. But this is just to keep you apprised that the process is working, that we're providing the highest discount possible per your approval, and we will share that with the city. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions? It sounds like there is no action. Okay.
Jay, do you have anything to add?
Oh, great.
All right.
All right, we'll go to 4D, discussion and action regarding resolution 4838, police tier 1, resolution 4839, police tier 2, resolution 4840, fire tier 1, resolution 4841, fire tier 2, contribution rate amounts for 24-25.
So Benji is actually in attendance remotely through Zoom. Before I turn it over to her, in a nutshell, these are just every year as part of the actual evaluation by Chiron. The results of the evaluation means that there are going to be specific contribution rates for members. These resolutions are memorializing that in writing and officially getting your approval so that these contributions for the employees and for the city can be made starting for the fiscal year 24-25. With that said, I'll turn it over to Benji. I don't know if I said everything you were going to say, Benji, if there's anything or you need to correct me or you have anything else to add.
Actually, you said everything I was going to say, so there's really nothing for me to add, but if there are any questions out there, I'm happy to answer them. I do have a cover memo that shows the rates from last year to this year, just so you can see how they've changed. But other than that, like Roberto said, this is all taken from the actuarial valuations that you've already approved.
Okay, so I take it you're looking for a motion to approve the new contributions?
Resolutions?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Santos,
I'll second.
a second by Wilson. Any further discussion?
Yeah, one question.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Remind me, do we send out a letter to the membership updating the changes before fiscal year, or?
Yes.
I can't remember if we do that or not.
We do, and every year I want to send it earlier and Benji doesn't let me. No, I think we do it after you approve the resolutions. Benji, do you have a timeline we're going to be issuing the letters?
That's correct. We do send it after the resolutions are approved. We are trying to change the process, to reduce costs with the printing. We were hoping to instead do a mass mailing to the membership with letting them know that the contribution rates have changed, but we're still in the process of checking on what the process is going to be and how that's going to go about. But if you would prefer us to continue sending, printed letters, we can do that. And, we usually do that by around May. And then in June, we also do a payroll. We also include the information in the payroll flyers for 2 pay periods so that the membership is aware of the changes.
Benji, can I just ask, when you said a mass mailing, did you mean email?
Email, yes, thank you.
I see.
So emailing, and I'm sure we're thinking about this, emailing works for the bulk of the employees, but not every employee in the city has email address, so.
Yes, so the ones that don't have email addresses, we would mail those out.
Okay.
Okay.
So did that say, we will be.
I couldn't remember if there was a communication or not, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Move on to 5 retirements. I'm gonna put these early retirement deferred together. We have David Betancourt, fire engineer, fire department, effective May 1st, 2024, 22.97 years of service. We also have Christopher E. Harden, police officer, police department, effective April 28th, 2024, 15.04 years of service with reciprocity. Michael H. Rose, police officer, police department, effective April 3rd, 2024, 15.02 years of service. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
A motion from Dick,
Second.
second from Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll do the death and survivorship notifications. Notification of the death of James M. Overstreet, Police Sergeant, retired October 31st, 2009, died February 12th, 2024, no survivorship benefits. Notification of the death of Ralph Padilla, Fire Captain, retired January 29th, 2015, died February 8th, 2024, survivorship benefit to Rose Padilla, spouse. Notification of the death of Lawrence M. Russell, police officer, retired October 31st, 2001, died December 29th, 2023, survivorship benefits to Rose Martha Martinez Russell, spouse. Notification of the death of Robert Walls, firefighter, retired May 1st, 1990, died March 8th, 2024, no survivorship benefits. I'll have a moment of silence. Okay, anyone like to give any comments?
Real quickly, Mr. Chair, it's a sad time. I work with both and we celebrate their service.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of echo those thoughts. I knew Jimmy Overstreet pretty well. I worked for him for many years. Tragic into his life. Thoughts and prayers to his surviving children. I did not know Mr. Russell, but I can look at he had 22 years in retirement. In my mind, that's still a little too soon. My thoughts and prayers to his family as well.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to 7 committee minutes reports. Investment Committee.
So we had a meeting, which is March 19th. We have another one coming up next week. The focus last month was discussing risk level in, particularly in some of the private market segments. And whether we need to revise the IPS in light of, new investments in venture, for example.
Yeah, thank you. Audit Risk Committee.
Our last meeting, sorry, thanks. Our last meeting was on March 1st. Sunita was the chair at the time. She summarized the last meeting at our last board meeting. We have a meeting coming up on April 11th to review the city audit report from Joe, and which I believe came out a day early.
Yes, it was supposed to be tomorrow, I think.
Right, yeah, so it's expected, so we'll review it on the 11th, and I think he will be presenting it to the city council shortly thereafter.
Good, thank you. Governance Committee. Let me first say we'll receive and file the minutes. And then we have a discussion and action on proposed board trustee educational travel policy.
Yes, so a part of our due diligence and reviewing all the city policies and whatnot, we've also revisited the board trustees educational travel policy for both the police and fire board. This went before the governance committee to discuss. As you know, as most of you know, or the trustees do know, that you are all volunteers that sit on this board. And you also have full-time jobs, and because you are volunteers, it is incumbent upon yourself to exercise your duty of prudence and get educated on the plan administration. Plan administration is a very complicated issue, and most of that education doesn't come with being on the job necessarily, but it really comes through attendance at public pension conferences throughout the state. And so because of that, we have revisited the travel policy to help the trustees in meeting their fiduciary duties and administering the plan, and to ensure that travel related expenditures are reasonable, prudent, and cost efficient, so we could best serve the best interests of our members. And so what we have here in this travel policy, what we do is establish the rules for attendance at conferences, and also establish what is reasonable reimbursements and what sort of documentation and things that need to be submitted for that process. In designing this travel policy, we looked at our sister plans. We looked at Los Angeles County Employees Retirement System, LaSarah, OSERS for Orange County, and SD-SERS, which is another charter city, similarly situated to us. Now, this scope of the policy only applies to trustees. It does not extend to the staff. And it sets the general parameters of permissible travel. The policy put forth before you does not discuss procedural details of how ORS will carry out the policy for the trustees. But because of the significance of this policy, I want to highlight a few things subject to the board's approval, which is that travel must be booked at least 3 weeks in advance to the extent possible. Pre-approval for participation of public pension related programs is provided, so you do not need to submit a request prior to and get your pre-travel request approved first before booking travel and whatnot. There's a listing of public pension related programs that are on the pre-approved list. There's no foreign travel allowed unless you can prove that it cannot be done within the US and that it's a benefit to the plan. There will be no cash advances. I want to make that clear. And flights. So flights, you cannot fly more than 2 days before the program, absent good cause. The airport can not be further than 100 miles from the trustee's beginning location or permanent residence, and cannot exceed a round trip cost from San Jose unless the CEO approves it. So there's a cost check on the airport designation. The 5 US commercial airlines are covered for use, and the trustees may own fly and coaching economy. And if you want to pay for an upgrade, you can certainly do that on your own dime, but we will not be reimbursing you for that. Lodging is more stringent than the city. So basically you have to stay either at the program hotel, or you may stay at a less expensive option within 5 miles of the program. Or if the hotel's sold out then for the program, then you can stay at a different one. That provides information about documentation for reimbursement. And here's the thing that I want to really highlight for the trustees is that we've included an attestation for each trustee to review and sign, attesting that they have read and they will adhere to this travel policy. And so each trustee must review it and submit it on a yearly basis. With that, I also included in the backup materials the governance committee had requested that we compare it to the city policies, both for city employee travel as well as for appointed and city council members. And we did provide a chart along with the backup material to show how we stack up against those various policies. In a number of respects, we are more stringent than the city's policy. So I would direct your attention to that document.
Thank you. Just one question or comment. I know we talked about it on the audit committee, but our governance, sorry. For the benefit, there are 2 city employees that sit on this board. Just for clarification, which policy will they be falling under if they travel wearing the hat of this board?
If you're a city employee and you're traveling on trustee business, the travel policy of the trustees policy for this board would apply because you are using the funds from the trust assets to travel. And so it follows logically that the board policy would apply in that circumstance. The reason for that is we don't want there to be any sort of confusion regarding the duty of loyalty, which hat you're wearing when you're attending these public pension conferences. If you're attending a public pension conference on behalf of the plan, we would like you to stay with your trustee hat on and use trustee dollars.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Disability.
We need action.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Motion to approve the proposed travel policy.
In a motion, Wilson, and a second from Dick. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now you, Dick.
Thank you,
Disability.
Mr. Chair, yes, we last met on March 11th. Next meeting will be right here at April 8th, Monday at 10 o'clock, along with the highly qualified trustee Wilson. We're all doing the job here and the minister there, and I appreciate the staff. Of course, our thoughts and prayers are for Rush Marquetta. I hope health-wise it's working out. Thank you.
And we'll receive and file the minutes. JPC.
So we had a meeting last month and we have a meeting tomorrow, actually. And we continue to work towards a hiring of a new CEO. I'll let Andrew.
No further, yeah, just, that's what's on the plate right now. So,
Good. Okay, we'll receive and file those minutes. Is there any proposed agenda items?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a proposed agenda item, but I did forget to, in my oral update, to remind you all, during consent this morning, you approved the insurance to be renovated for the new year for the insurance. The reason it wasn't a discussion and action item was because you approved a policy in 2016 that if the increase in premiums was 5% or less, I could, as a CEO, approve it. This year, not only was not any increase up to 5, there was actually a decrease at about 8.7%. So I went ahead and approved it. But we still have it on consent for you, so you could see the letter and information and the approval portion. The reason I wanted to speak to you about it is because, as you know, every year we need the for the waiver of recourse fees, the $25. There are 3 insurance that you actually cover under, and that waiver is $25 for each one of the insurance. There are 2 of them for 10 million and 1 for 5 million. And so that will be a total of $75. It's a nominal fee that you pay as a trustee. And I'll read it here. The waiver of recourse premiums allow the trustee to buy off such a recourse claimed by the insurer. And on the law, however, because it's a benefit to the individual trustee personally, the modest annual premium 25 per policy must be paid directly by the trustee and not the plan. So that's why we charge you that amount. So when you get a chance, if you can write a check to the retirement office for the $75, we'll be really appreciate it. And we will follow up with emails to remind you of it. Benji, did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes my comments, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Hearing nothing else, we're adjourned.
I'd like to thank Franco for covering all our insurance fees for the rest of the trustees. So grateful he agreed to